welcome to another episode of Witchin Kitchen. I'm your host, Justina Carubia, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make clove-scented cookies. I actually got the recipe from a book I recently read, and this book is called Stella Mia by Rosanna Chiofalo, and she's Italian. I'm pretty sure she's Sicilian. I really enjoyed it. It took me a little bit to get through because I really took my time with it. So it's basically about a girl named Julia Parlatone, and one day she's going through some old things in the basement to work on an assignment with because she's a teacher, and she ends up finding a box full of like her mother's old stuff. Now her mother, she kind of disappeared from Julia's childhood at a really young age, so she doesn't really remember anything about her mother. So when she finds this box of stuff, she gets really curious and she starts digging in, and she finds a diary, and she reads this diary about her mother, who grew up in Italy, in Sicily. I don't remember exactly where. Her mother's name is Sarina. She grows up in a very abusive household. Her father's very abusive. She has brothers and sisters, and her father abuses her mother, and she ends up running away to get away from her abusive father. So she runs away, and she ends up finding herself in a little town in Sicily called Taormina. Taormina is, they consider it the jewel of the Mediterranean. Sarina is a singer. She really loves to sing, so I kind of identified a little bit in that aspect. She arrives in Taormina to kind of hide away from her family and her father from finding her, and she really needs to find work to support herself at this point. And she happens upon a band of gypsies, and the band of gypsies kind of take her in, and they teach her the ways of the tarot, and she kind of uses the tarot to support herself for a little bit. But then eventually the gypsies move on, and Sarina has to find a way to make ends meet. She can either stay in Taormina, find a way to make ends meet, or leave with the gypsies and be even further away from her family, which she didn't completely want because she still wanted a way to keep in touch with her mother. So she doesn't want to go too far from Taormina because she's holding on to hope to see her family once again. She decides to stay in Taormina and find some work. So she's looking for singing jobs all around. She's using her tarot to support herself, but people don't take gypsies very seriously in Italy. They're really considered these really conniving and manipulative people, and they were really given a bad rap. The band of gypsies that she happened upon weren't those type of people. They're really sweet, and they welcomed her in, and they really showed her how to make a living doing what she loved, whether it was the tarot or whether it was singing. They really helped her embrace her creativity and her own inner voice, and I really identified with that aspect of the book. I really loved the whole tarot and singer vibe and the whole Sicilian folk themes. So basically the whole book is Sarina's diary, and she happens upon this love affair, and I don't want to go too much into it because I think you should really read it. It is kind of a slow, gradual build-up. I did think the book was going to be a lot more based around her being a gypsy and the tarot, but it's actually the complete opposite. She's only with the gypsies for a short amount of time. They only talk about the tarot a little bit in the book. They touch on it here and there, and there's certain scenes where she uses it to make a little money doing tarot readings, but aside from that, a big portion of the book is based on the romance that Sarina ends up finding. That aspect I was kind of a little disappointed. I was kind of hoping there was a little bit more involved with the tarot and her life as a gypsy, because I identify with those aspects the most. So the book does come full circle at the end. The diary portion of Sarina's life kind of cuts off, and then it goes back to Julia, her daughter, who's reading this diary. And Julia is still really keen on finding her mother and wanting to know all about her and what she's been up to in the years that she hasn't been involved in Julia's life. Julia and her father kind of have a little bit of a quarrel or a little argument because he didn't really tell Julia too much about her mother, Sarina. I don't want to spoil the end, but it was a very sad ending, and I wasn't really expecting that, but I guess it had to end that way in order for things to kind of come full circle, and that's all I'm gonna say. It was a beautiful ending. I got a little emotional. This book was very near and dear to my heart because it's so based in Sicily, and I have a lot of family there still, and that's where my roots are. I really identified with this book a lot. So it was a beautiful book all in all. It was a bit long, and I think it was a bit drawn out at times, and I think it could have definitely focused a bit more on the tarot. And I'm kind of wondering what would have happened if she actually left with the gypsies. That might have been a cool fork in the road type of story to write, maybe as a fan fiction or something. What would have happened if she had left with the gypsies and not stayed stayed in Taormina to work as a singer to support herself. If it was more of a traveling book and a coming of age book, as opposed to, oh, I'm just gonna stay here and settle for a romance type of book. I don't know, I'm really into self-discovery and personal journeys and kind of meeting a cast of characters along the way to help you in your personal growth. If it was a little more like that, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. It was a very sweet and touching and sentimental book, I'll give it that. But again, like the romance, I don't know. I guess I'm just not a romance novel type of person. They just bore me. Even 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight, like they're just very like, okay. I'm more into like a journey type of book. Keep moving. Each section of the book is a new portion or chapter to that character's growth. So that's basically what the book is about. So basically, here's the book, and I'm just gonna flip through it real quick. Each chapter is like a different place or location in Sicily that the author talks about, and there's even some portions in the book that take place back in New York. So at the end of the book, the author has a few recipes, and the very first recipe that caught my eye was these Tetu clove-scented chocolate cookies. Now here are the ingredients, so I'm gonna try these today. She also has a granita recipe, which is like an Italian kind of ice coffee drink. She has Sicilian rice balls, which my grandmother makes all the time. Pasta alla norma, which is pasta with eggplant, omelet with potatoes and onions. And there's also a Q&A back here with like things about her inspiration behind the book, and and what I didn't realize was some of the characters in this book are actually characters that she has in another book. I think she said Bella Fortuna. There's a few characters that are in this book that I think that Bella Fortuna book is kind of spotlights on those characters more. Yeah, some of the characters in her book are kind of intertwining. There you have it. Stella Mia, a beautiful book. I don't know where my mom got this. It says advanced uncorrected proof not for sale, and she bought it somewhere, so I don't know how she got this book, but my mom gave me this book. Click here to watch part 2 on my recipe on how to make Tetu chocolate clove cookies. Also, don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe, and visit bohemianmagicstudios.com.